Hello, I'm your host, Leonard Duncan. Welcome to a new episode of ATV-TALK and Motorsports Podcast. Please join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We bring you interviews with industry professionals, live events, live news about the motorsports industry in every episode. Enjoy the show. Whether we are out riding with our friends and family or racing in extreme environments, we all need good tires. That's why I recommend GBC Power Sports Tires, a division of Greenball Corp. Their products, which include XC Master, Mini Master, and Groundbuster 3, are what leading professionals in the ATV-UTV industry are using. You can get your tires at greenballtires.com or find them on Instagram as GBC Tires for further inquiries. Are you looking for the best suspension technology for your sport ATV? Look no further than Elka Suspension, the industry leader in sport ATV suspension technology. With championship wins in prestigious events such as the Dakar Rally, SCORE, Best in the Desert, ATV MX, Cross Country, and Works, Elka Suspension has established itself as the go-to choice for athletes and enthusiasts alike. But they don't just stop at ATVs. They're constantly expanding into new markets, including UTVs, trucks, SUVs, pit bikes, snowmobiles, and more. Their commitment to innovation and quality means they're always looking to improve and adapt so you can enjoy a smooth ride wherever you go. Want to learn more about what Elka Suspension can do for you? Visit their website at elkasuspension.com or give them a call at 450-655-4855. They will always be happy to answer your questions and help you find the perfect suspension solution for your needs. Wayne Matlock, welcome to ATV Talk, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hey, brother. All I can say is you have had a historic career, not only in just racing ATVs, but also in the UTV world. But what I want to do is I want to go a little back farther into history and find out, where the love of racing comes from.
I don't know. I think it's something you're born with, but then I've met plenty of people, my wife included, that never grew up in racing and fell in love with it. So I think it's just something that, you like the camaraderie of it. The feeling you get at the racetrack, the feelings that everyone else has, is such, you just feel alive.
Right on. Greatest people you'll ever meet is at an ATV race, right?
Yeah, or any race. I don't care if you're racing lawnmowers; it's still fun.
Right on. You grew up here in Southern California, same, not too far from myself, and you started racing in the local deserts here in just outside of San Diego.
Yeah, down at just 38. It was my first race. I think, my first race was on my mom's quad at 250R, Honda 4-tracks. And my dad had to lie on the entry fee to get me signed up because I was too young. And it was a ton of fun. I had a blast. And I think I signed up in the novice class and I ended up winning that. And it was just a ton of fun and did some little stuff here and there. But I never really started racing professionally until I was out of high school, just kind of into it. My dad always did it, but never got serious until after high school.
Well, your dad was really fast here in the local and did a bunch of SCORE stuff too, as well, didn't he?
Yeah. He raced everything from 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers to motorcycles, drag boats, you name it. If it had a motor, he'd race it. So right. That's what I grew up doing. Like my dad, when Honda debuted the 250R in '86, the 4-wheeler, my dad raced it at the Baja 500 and ended up beating the factory Honda team. And that's how we got to meet, that's how my dad met Bruce Ogilvy and, got to know him and stuff like that. So just one thing led to the next.
It's amazing how small the world of racing really is when you get down to it.
Oh yeah.
Because Bruce knew everybody.
Yeah. It's just such a small, those worlds that keep coming back around. this, even now that I'm racing, UTVs, I'm still around people all the time that I knew back when I was racing ATVs. So it's just definitely a small community.
How many years did you spend racing down at District 38?
Oh, I still race down there. I did a UTV race a couple months ago, co-driving for my son. He's racing it now.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I started racing in the early 90s in I would say 1990, probably 91. And then I raced all through, I rode for Suzuki for a little while, or Bombardier, and then Suzuki, and then rode for Honda for 8 years. And I raced District 38 through all of that, just stay in shape and seat time. It's all racing is about seat time.
Right, right. You also won a number of District 38 titles, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure honestly how many. Yeah, I know I won several on the quads, and then did a couple in the UTVs too when they first started racing UTVs down there.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
when you talk about rough desert, I'm going to bounce all around here on you.
let's
When you
do
talk
it.
rough racing, because I know you spent a lot of time in Baja, you've raced best in the desert, and when you talk about ATV racing and some of the greats, the great desert racers have come from our local District 38.
Yeah,
Where's the roughest desert you've ever raced in?
right there. you know, if you can hang on for a District 38 race, you can pretty much hang on for anything. It's there's a reason why there's a lot of people that don't like to race down there. They refuse to do it. But for those of us that I guess we're fortunate enough to grow up and that's our backyard, you just hang on and go. And that's just a normal Sunday. It's fifth gear going through giant bumps. The faster you go, the smoother they get.
I love that. I love that. It's so true though, isn't
But
it?
yeah, yeah, it's there's a lot of great motorcycle racers and a whole lot of great ATV racers that came out of just 38.
Yeah, I could name probably 20 guys that came out of D38 that went
Yeah.
down and had success in Baja.
Oh yeah, you had success in Baja on dirt bikes and ATVs and racing cars. It teaches you to read terrain a lot. And every desert does that. It's seat time. It's hard for a guy that races District 38 to go up and race District 37 and pull off a top win because we're not used to reading that terrain that's up there. But if you do it for long enough, you're going to get competitive.
I've heard the District 37 guys hated coming down here because of the whoops, and
Yep.
all the District 38 guys hated going up there because of all the rocks.
See, I loved it up there. I did National Hare and Hounds, I think, for 3 years. I won two national championships up there. And it was a ton of fun because it was so different than what's down here. I love the rocks. I like real technical terrain as much as I like going fast. And I just found it, so different. I was doing so many events down here and in Baja and Best in the Desert. Like the District 37 National Hare and Hound Series was so different. So that's what I liked about it.
You mentioned that you started racing on a 250R. How long did the era of the 250R last for you?
Not long. By the time I had started racing quads, more professionally, I was right into four strokes. Um, I raced the 250Rs really young and then got into racing dirt bikes and raced those for quite a while. And then Greg Rowe wanted me to race San Felipe 250. And that was in, I think, 98 on a 250R. And it was my first Baja race and we got the overall. And, from that point on, you're just hooked.
Oh yeah, I bet. So that wasn't your first experience in Baja. That was just your first race.
First race. Yeah. Yeah. That was my first race in Baja. I've been going to Baja with my dad since I was a kid. Um, I was telling someone we just went down this past weekend, did our San Quintin, our beach ride where we go to the orphanages and stuff like that. And I was telling someone, the first time I've been down this road, I was about 12 years old on a CR80. And they're like, what? And I said, yeah. I said, my dad let me and my buddy ride from, Urindia all the way to Santo Tomas to get a candy bar and a Coke. And that was Danny Prather. And Danny would ride by ourselves. Our dad let us go for 30 miles on a dirt road to another town in Baja when we were 12 and go get a Coke and a candy bar. And they gave us enough oil in a little squeeze bottle so we can mix our own fuel at the PMEX and then ride back.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Danny and I grew up riding down there, and then we became, teammates, and then we had a rivalry that went on for 15 years almost. Just a lot of fun memories.
Danny is an extremely nice guy.
Oh yeah, super nice guy. His dad's guy too. His dad raced with my dad. Yep. So it was just they would go camping with us down there in Urindia. So always a lot of fun.
Are you ready for your next vacation adventure? Step into the heart of Arizona's natural splendor with a tour of Antelope Slot Canyon. Ideal for photography enthusiasts and nature lovers, our tours offer a unique journey through a landscape sculpted over millions of years. Let our expert guides lead you through the swirling sandstone. We're going to have to do it. Let our expert guides lead you through the swirling sandstone formations where every turn reveals stunning light displays, geological marvels. Secure your spot now at Antelope Slot Canyon Tours and prepare to be awed by the canyon's mystical beauty. For details, please visit us at antelopeslotcanyon.com.
And you're still really deep into the culture down there in Baja and spending time.
Yeah, I probably spend too much time down there. We spend probably 2 months a year down there in Baja. Every score race that comes up, we pre-run for a minimum of a week for every score race. There's 4 of those. And then we have our San Quintin beach ride that we're down there, for 4 to 5 days on that. And then we have our Mike Sky Ranch ride, same thing, 4 to 5 days there. And then we have family vacations that we were just down in Loretto for 12 days. So we love it down there. The culture down there, the people, the freedom that you have, everything. It's just racing is life down there. It's funny. We did the Nora Mexican 1000 is another race we do down there. That race is 6 days long of racing. And I'm sitting on the tailgate with Mike Caffro, and we're in San Ignacio. And we had people kept coming up to us wanting to take pictures. And I told Mike, man, we're really famous in small towns in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That is so cool. Because he was a fierce competitor of yours for a number of years as well.
Still is. Him and Jamie are racing, UTVs, and Mike's fast. Mike's fast at just about anything he wants to do.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of knowledge doing it just as you do.
Yeah, it's funny because we have all these lines, racing ATVs down there. We're so competitive that you're looking for every inch. So you're trying to find all these different lines. Well, when we got into racing UTVs, the guys weren't, honestly, they weren't that competitive. So they were sticking on the course, and we went down there, and all of a sudden we have all these lines, and we're driving right by them, and they start protesting us, saying we're cheating. Like, we never saw you pass us. And we start laughing like, yeah, we know, because you were on the course, so, so
the good line, you were on the bad line.
Yeah. We all get the same rules to play by, but it's all about knowledge. And now the UTV racing is ultra competitive down there. If you get a flat tire, you're probably not going to win because it's that competitive.
Wow. I want to shift gears on you just a little bit here. Tell me a little bit more about the orphanage stuff that you guys do down there.
So we go down once a year to this orphanage. His foundation is for his ministry, and it's a Christian-based orphanage in San Vicente. And we go down and bring a whole group of UTVs down. This last trip, I think we had 47 people on the ride. We go from Estero Beach in Ensenada down to San Quintin, stay at the old mill. Next day we wake up, take all the cars, all the UTVs up to the orphanage, and we give all the kids at the orphanage rides in the UTVs around the orphanage and stuff. And then we bring them all their school supplies, all the clothing, and monetary support for 1 year. So just try to do trying to give back to Baja. We've been down there for so many years, enjoying the country, enjoying the people, enjoying the lifestyle. So it's something that my wife and I wanted to give back, to the community and give back. We've been so fortunate over the years, and just to be able to give back to that is a lot of fun. It's very humbling when you see what some of these people go through, and some of the kids and stuff. But all those kids in the orphanage, they seem very happy. They're very well taken care of. It's a really neat place, and thank God there's places like that there.
How did you find the organization, or how did you find out about this?
It was something that we wanted to do. Because honestly, for years we'd do this beach ride, and it was basically just a big giant party. We'd go down there and have fun, and raise hell a couple nights and then come back. And then as you get older and things start, you start looking at the bigger picture. You're like, we should probably do something, as opposed to just going down there. So my wife and I wanted to do something, and then Daniel Felix was our full-time mechanic at the time at the race shop, and we kind of tasked Danny with, hey, can you research and find an orphanage down there that is a legit place, and it's a reputable place that doesn't already have a group supporting them. That's not that they can't always use more support, but we want to spread the wealth a little bit. So Cameron Steele has a group that goes down there, supports an orphanage. There's a couple different groups that go down there to do that kind of thing. So we wanted to pick someone new, and we kind of ran with it. And honestly, it's Kristen that does all of that stuff and organizes it and talks to them and finds out. I mean, she got 100 pairs of shoes, and one for each size, each kid, donated, and all of the clothing and all that stuff. So just a lot of logistical work. But when you're doing it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. But then when you see the smiles on their faces, you do it all again on Tuesday.
That's just incredible stuff right there. That thank you for sharing about that. That's outstanding. Is there a way to get in touch with you guys so that people can give you supplies or donate to it to help you out?
Yeah, the best way is probably reaching out to Kristen on Instagram. It's Kristen Matlock _ whatever edit on Instagram. It's more just a grassroots type thing. So we put it out. She puts it out on social media on both of our channels, several months before it starts filling up for people that want to go. And we don't do those rides down there to go make money. It's just covering the cost. And then whatever we have left over that doesn't, because we bring 2 chase trucks, with parts and trailers and all the other stuff, and whatever we have left over that, besides the fuel and that stuff, we give to the orphanage. So it all goes 100% back into Mexico. There's not one dime that comes back home. So it's fun.
That's so incredible. Thank you so much for doing that. My wife is from Guadalajara, so half of my family is from Mexico, and it's an incredible culture.
It's cool. In doing this, it's fun getting our sponsors involved, like Polaris supplies all kinds of, water bottles, and they gave all these kids these like toy erasers that are, they're big, and they sent 100 of those things. So we got boxes and boxes of this stuff. And then, like all these different companies, Yokohama makes backpacks for every single kid. So every kid gets a backpack for school that has, Yokohama embroidered on it, and Matlock Racing, and they're nice bags. They got them OGO bags. It's like these awesome. Cool in style, and they all got brand new shoes. And different sponsors will send in, if they don't have anything to donate for that, Kristen has it set up on Amazon to where you can just order something on Amazon and it drop ships to a place, to Estero Beach in Mexico. And then so it all gets across the border that way. Then we pick everything up from Estero Beach and send it right down.
That's still an incredible task. I mean,
Oh,
that's like running a race program just to take care of that.
but just the stuff that we took from here, all the school supplies and everything, filled to the top a 12-foot box van full of stuff. And so we take that down to the broker and Otay, and we have a broker cross it, and that broker brings it down to Ensenada for us, and we take it from there on the flatbed trailers down to San Vicente.
Man, that's a lot of work. That's pretty awesome that you guys do that. And then all the people that go down with you that help volunteer. I
Yeah.
mean, it's off to all of you. That's incredible stuff.
It's one of those things you're doing when we first bring people there, they're like, okay, that sounds like a cool day. And then afterwards, everyone is a little bit humbled and they're smiling so big from the inside out. It's hard to tell who has a bigger smile on their face when they're driving the kids around, the 40-year-old adult or the 12-year-old kid getting to ride a UTV for the first time. It's fun.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, brother. I want to get back into some ATV racing. I really appreciate that you guys do that. And if we can ever do anything to help you, you just reach out immediately, and we will jump right on that. We have a lot of feelers out in the social media market. I know you guys have a ton of sponsors and a great network. But if you ever need anything, we are here.
It's not. The more the merrier for that kind of stuff. We have people that don't sponsor us that sponsor some friends. Like Chris Blaze came on the ride. He's got different sponsors and stuff like that. But everyone kind of pitches in, and just it's all for a good cause.
Right on. That is so true. But man, the amazing race career, and then that on top of it, wow, that just tops it off. I don't know how you're going to top that one in the rest of our time, but we'll see what we can do.
I'm going.
You mentioned that you rode for Bombardier and Suzuki.
Yeah.
So two totally different styles of machine.
Yeah. Yeah. I did the Bombardier thing with Greg Rowe. Myself, Greg was Greg's team, and then myself and Danny Prather, and Dean Sundahl was with us for like a year and a half or so. It was a lot of fun, getting experience and stuff like that. That machine was just absolutely huge, though. It was big, and it wasn't all that fast, but it was big. It was throw around, and then from that, I got hooked up with Suzuki through Alba Action Sports. Through Corey Hove, and Steve Billman actually got me on that ride, and I think we won 2 Best in the Desert championships on the Suzuki. So the Suzuki, the LT 400 or LTZ
400, yeah,
400, and then from that I went to Honda.
So that Z400 time, when you were winning and Best in the Desert, that kind of started your legacy climb for winning and being a dominant desert racer in the larger picture.
Yeah. It's we started doing pretty well on that Suzuki. We won 1 championship, and then that following year, Honda had brought out, in 2004, I think they debuted. 04, they had that the 450, the TRX. Mm-hmm. And so we were racing against that in 04 and 05. It was like we had a Nevada 1000 race that year, and it was Chad Brule was my partner at the time, my teammate, and we were racing Nevada 1000, and we were on it was a 400 Suzuki pumped up to a 440, and we were racing against the Honda on the 450, and we were beating him. So we already knew Bruce just from my dad, but my dad went to the driver's meeting one night, and Bruce pulled my dad aside and said, "Hey, before Wayne signs the Suzuki again, he needs to talk to me." So, and there was like 2 days left in that race. It's like, just don't screw up. And right. We ended up off and signed with Honda later that year.
That's awesome. And when you signed the Honda, then you went into riding the Honda 450.
Yeah. It was a weird deal. I was contracted to Suzuki to race Best in the Desert, That's all my contract covered. It did not cover score. So I had signed with Honda like in October, and I raced the TRX 450, the 06 model. We raced it in 05, which I was still under contract with Suzuki to race Best in the Desert. And then, so we were racing Best in the Desert, had a race like 3 weekends. And then 3 weekends later, I raced for Honda in Mexico at the Baja 1000. And we ended up winning the Baja 1000 on the Honda. And then 2 weeks later, we went back to race the Henderson 250 with Suzuki. And we ended up winning that race and won the championship. So it was kind of a whole hodgepodge of things going on right there, but I felt it ended pretty well.
And Suzuki they weren't upset at all?
No, they weren't interested in Baja. So it was one of those things we had, like, they weren't really that interested in Baja, and it wasn't even really that much of a professional deal in Best in the Desert. They were giving us bikes, quads and parts. So my deal was more with Alba Action Sports.
Right.
But then the deal with Honda was directly with Honda. So that was, I felt, a pretty good step up.
And did Honda want to do Best in the Desert?
Yeah, we did Best in the Desert with Honda. With Honda, I was doing Score, Best in the Desert, and National Hare and Hounds. So there was several years we did like 32 events a year. Just, I would race anything, anywhere I could find and go race.
That's so awesome. So much fun.
Oh, it was a ton of fun. It was a ton of fun. It's just, Kristen and I driving all over the western part of the United States and down into Baja and everything else, just racing.
How many Score titles did you win?
On ATVs, I think 5. Yeah, 5 championships, I think.
You were pretty damn dominant down there for a while.
Yeah, we had a good run. Chad and I, and then Harold Goodman, and then actually Chad and I didn't have that good of a run. We had a lot of little issues, and then I got tied up with Harold Goodman, and him and Josh Castor and Wes Miller, and we won every race for almost 3 years. We won every single race for 2.5 years down there. And that's when quads were really big down there. So it was a lot of fun. But you're always waiting for that bubble to burst. And when it does, it's like, well, everyone's expecting you to win. So it's it's definitely a shocker and humbling and everything. You always know you can't win them all, but we give it hell trying.
Yeah, well, when you win 2.5, 3 years worth of races straight, and then you don't, you're like, what happened? What did we do wrong?
Yeah. Well, Josh Frederick showed up on that Can-Am. Fast. That thing was fast. And, Josh is no slouch. So it was, we definitely had our hands full. On that race, it was a Baja 1000. We had definitely made our fair share of mistakes. And when you have that good a competition, it cost us. So we lost the 1,000 that year to Josh.
Yeah, and you still probably won the title for the year.
No, we didn't, because we didn't finish the race. We didn't finish the 1,000.
Oh.
Yeah, we lost the title that year. Josh won it. So it's one of those things you never like to get beat, but when you get beat by a caliber of rider like Josh Fredericks and Jeremy Warnia and those guys, it's not bad. We gave it help.
Unfortunately, Josh doesn't race anymore, but Warnia still rides the beach races over in Europe.
Yeah, it's funny. I got a chance to hang out with Warnia when we did Dakar for Polaris. He was also racing for a French company over there in a Polaris, and we hung out just about every day. And it was hilarious because we found ourselves together in the middle of Saudi Arabia, taking different lines than anybody else because we came from quads. So it's like, hey, it's rough over here. We're going to go over here. And we're constantly battling back and forth. There was one day we traded spots at least 20, 30 times. It was a ton of fun. and he's a
That
great
would
guy.
have, that would
Great.
have to be. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't get to go to Saudi Arabia. I got to do it in South America, and it was just incredible amount of fun. As rough and as bad as it was the first year I went, it was so amazing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's one of those races that people ask, like, how was it? I'm like, well, it was like a true adventure. And in my opinion, a true adventure, half the time you're asking yourself, why in the fuck am I doing this? And the other half, 5 minutes later, you're like, this is incredible. Then you realize, it's a Tuesday afternoon and I'm racing a car through Saudi Arabia. It's pretty bitching. It's fun. And then you fast forward an hour later and it's pouring rain. I'm on the highway for 200 miles driving a race car, miserable. But do it all over again.
Yeah, but you couldn't once you got dry and warm. We're like, we got to do that again.
Oh yeah, that's whatever.
That's great.
Yeah.
As your Honda career progressed, they came out with this odd machine with an IRS rear end and tried to make it a race machine, and it did for the most part. You had a little bit of success with it, but not as much as Honda would have liked, I'm sure.
No, yeah, I mean, we had some good success with it. We debuted that bike for them at the Baja 500, and we ended up winning. It was really close. I think it was like 30 something seconds that we got the win by, and we kept perfecting the machine, perfecting it, but it was big and heavy, and it did some things good. It did a lot of things horribly. But it wasn't a race machine. The bottom line is the 450s were just faster. And but we were contracted to ride that 700, and it had its pluses. There was, the long Baja 1000, the long runs going all the way down. The thing was great. Like Vegas to Reno, it was really good until Greg Stewart showed up with that, that bike that he made with the whole chassis and had the motor in it. It's like, oh, well, shoot. And ours just weighed so much, and then there was so many drivetrain parts with that independent rear suspension. It had a rear, whole transmission going back, changing directions, and then sprockets coming off that with CV joints and axles. It was asking a lot of that quad to go that fast.
How about the riders?
It was asking a lot. And it would get sketchy fast. In smaller whoops, the thing worked great. If the whoops turned big, you're looking for places to jump off.
Wow.
It was a little on the sketchy side, but we had a lot of fun. We won a lot of races on it. It's just was really tough to compete with a 450 that was dialed in with dialed in riders.
Yeah, the straight axle and the lighter weight.
Yeah. The independent part I liked. The independent rear suspension's bitching. It's awesome. The weight was not awesome. The thing was just heavy, and it was so limited on rear wheel travel. Yes, if they, I think today's technology, if they had that same quad in that weight caliber but added 4-wheel drive to it, I think it would be a awesome machine for down there, because all-wheel drive is just amazing.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, on a lot of courses you're gonna have your hands full with the 450, but on twisty, turny fire roads, like best in the desert type stuff, if you can get a 4-wheel drive lighter weight quad to do close to 100 miles an hour, then it could be game over.
Right.
Lightweight.
Is that all-wheel drive stuff that you learned from the UTV world?
Yeah. The UTVs, we don't drive them in 2-wheel drive at all. If we do, the rear drivetrain breaks, and there's not as fast. That's why trophy trucks now, all-wheel drive trophy trucks are dominating, because all-wheel drive's faster. That's why when Robbie was racing the Hummer in Dakar, a Mini Cooper would kick his ass, because it's all
right. That's too funny. Man, let's just throw that straight punch right out there, man. Boom.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Wayne, that's too funny. What portion or what race is most memorable to you in ATVs?
By far, San Felipe 250. I think it was 2008. All the years kind of run together, but I wasn't supposed to win. I had lost. Chad Brule was a longtime teammate of mine for racing, and Chad went to Temecula Motorsports, and I was still with Honda. Temecula Motorsports was with Honda, and they offered Chad some money that I didn't have, so I lost him as a teammate. And everyone had always oh, Chad's the faster one. Chad, this and that, so whatever. But it definitely was. It was a tough start to the year, just losing him and trying to find someone new. And that's when Bruce Ogilvy brought Harold Goodman into my program. And Harold, as you know, is TT racer and motocross racer, not a desert racer, but he wanted to do it. And if you can ride a quad on TT and motocross, you can figure out the desert for the most part, as long as you don't mind going fast. And Harold liked to go fast. So we had started that race, and I did the start, and then Harold did the middle. And when Harold came in, Chad was about 2.5 minutes in front of me when I got on the bike, and Chad got on. And I remember sitting in the pits, and when Chad took off, the Temecula Motorsports guys are high-fiving, and they're like, "Oh, we got this in the bag." And they were already celebrating the win, and that just pissed me off more than anything. And I've always said I hate losing more than I like winning. So I was willing to do anything to win. And I got on the bike. We're almost 3 minutes down, and just pinned it as fast and as hard as I can go. And I remember catching Chad in the whoops, and he had a good speed going. And when I passed him, my feet were over the top of the rear fenders because I just did not care. And I was going to win. And I ended up getting to the finish line, and we're both on Hondas, and getting to the finish line, and all the Temecula Motorsports guys are out there cheering and clapping until they realized it wasn't Chad. And that was probably the best feeling ever. That was pretty awesome, because I wasn't supposed to win, and we were definitely the underdogs. We had way less funding, way less of a lot of things, and we pulled it off. It was fun, and Chad was the first person to come up and give me a high five and a hug. It was yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Because there's still a friendship there and a link between you two.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Chad's an awesome guy. He's a hell of a rider. Chad is, I still think, one of the fastest guys in the desert, or was. It's just that day was my day. It could have went anyway. I could end up on my head, and I probably should have, but I didn't. And we pulled it off.
Give me the backstory on so I don't know a lot about this. This is just all things that I heard. I never got close enough or was needing to know. There was a bid for the Honda ride in the desert at one point between you and Cafro, wasn't there?
Not so much a bid. I think they wanted to spread it out, so there was they had two chances to win. They offered me a deal, and I took it, and they offered him a deal, and he took it. We had really good success, and the deal, I think our deal stretched out like 3 or 4 years past his. We just, I guess, made the right moves. I'm not sure. I know a lot of his funding depended on Temecula Motorsports.
The rumor I heard, not to interrupt, sorry,
okay,
was that the winner got the deal and you won.
I don't know. Honestly, I never heard that one, but I know, Honda's they're performance driven, results driven. So if you didn't win, you weren't going to get it. And, that's about the time that we went on that 3-year tear. And, we did the homework, we did the things right, but we also had luck on our side too. It's things could have went either way, because Cafro, and he had Josh Rowe riding with him for some of those races. Javier Robles. He had some very talented guys, and they had a really good program. It's just things worked out for us. It wasn't can't say anything bad about those guys because they hauled ass. They were fast. It's just we ended up on top. It could have went either.
At the end of that, I got to work with a team in the class down from you guys, and we were having great success then. And we got to watch, the class 25 guys dominate you and Cafro. You guys were having an amazing battle,
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about, tell me a little bit about the knowledge that Bruce Ogilvy had and the guidance there.
He's like talking to Yoda. So he was one of those guys. He was very quiet. But I heard my dad told me a long time ago that if you ask Bruce for advice, you better be ready to accept it and take it, because if you don't, he won't give you any more advice. So I always kept that in mind, and never got steered wrong. He had great insight on Baja, but really, really good insight on chassis setup and development. He's one of the guys that developed that TRX chassis. So he would see us do things and he's like, why'd you do that? Well, because we keep breaking this. Yeah. But it had a lot to do with frame flex and stuff like that. So when we were having chassis break, after like 2 races, the chassis would break by the motor mounts, by the head stay. And so we took him to Eichner, and Doug welded, all his gusset kits in there and stuff. And the thing looked bitching. First race I tried that on was a Best in the Desert race, and we always had to do reports at the end of the race. And in my report, I said how bad the quad was. Like, it was hunting lines and it was all over the place. And Bruce said, "What'd you do different?" I said, "Nothing. The same suspension package we had the race before. Same A-arm, same swing arm, same shocks." He goes, "You changed something. What'd you do? Did you do something to the chassis?" I'm like, "Well, we just put a gusset kit on it." He's like, "Oh, well, that's it. Don't ever do that again." I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "I'll give you new quads or new chassis every race, but don't ever put a gusset kit on it because it's going to make it hunt lines." And sure enough, we put a new chassis on that thing, and straight and flat like it always used to be. It would contour to the ground a lot better than when it was all rigid. He just said we made it too rigid. So, and like Harold in the TT races, Harold would take the head stays off the motor, and they'd flex chassis so bad they'd snap them in the TT races, but he would take the head stays off just so the quad would stay flat on the ground and turn and not track and hunt lines. So he just had all kinds of knowledge.
I would never, because we set our bikes up with the gusset kits and did all of our suspension testing with them.
Yeah.
Right?
But
we never had the same issue, but we didn't get free frames. So we had to do something to keep the bikes under us.
Yeah. See, towards about, I don't know, first or second season with Honda, every race we started on a new quad. So it was a brand new motor, chassis, whole package was brand new every race. So we could go through that stuff. And then there was all kinds of different little things like swing arm setups and linkages, everything. He was knowledgeable with all that stuff, but more so even with like Baja, like what you can get away with, what you can't get away with. Taught me a lot how to handle myself at races and what to say, what not to say. And he was one of those guys, if you asked him a question, he would take a minute to answer, because I always thought he was thinking his answer, then he was thinking of my answer that I was going to have, and he was already have his rebuttal to that before he gave me one answer. So he was just like that. He was very intelligent and smart, and definitely a good dude. He's really good for the sport.
Oh yeah, he's highly missed.
Yeah, for sure. He got his job, from what I understand, he got his job at Honda on a bet that he made in a race. I forgot who it was. I want to say it was Chuck Miller, but I could be wrong. That if he beat him, that Honda would have to hire him, and he ended up winning. So Honda hired him, and that's how he got his job.
I think there's some truth to that because I heard something like that as well.
Yeah. And I think Johnny Campbell was the one that told me that, because at the end of my day, the end of my career with Honda, like the last 3 years, I want to say 3 or 4 years, everything was through Johnny Campbell. So Johnny became my boss, and everything was going through JCR.
That's, yeah.
Way.
I've talked to so many people that Bruce has touched throughout the years. He worked with you, he's worked with other people that I've known, but I didn't even know that he worked with. In 04, we were at Glen Helen for the motocross national, when Timmy Farr was riding the bike, first year and all that. And, we had gotten some bikes from ECC through Honda, and I walked up because we needed something. I don't even remember what I needed. And I asked Mr. Ogilvy, can I speak to you for a moment? And he goes, sure, Lenny, what do you want? And I'm like, how does this guy that I've never met know who I am?
Yeah. No, he was a good dude. He was straight to the point. If he didn't like something you did, you would know. But very, very, like I said, just good for the sport. I remember we were racing a Best in the Desert race. It was a Henderson race in August, like a Henderson 250 race. No, it was Score that was doing it. Henderson in August. And it was me and Danny Prather racing a Bombardier DS650. And we were running first overall, second to the last lap. And I was on the quad, and the damn thing got so hot, the oil line melted off the tank, the oil tank, the sump tank that was up front. Because it was, when we started the race at like 6 a.m, it was 118 degrees. It was so hot. And so the oil line melted off, and I, limped the quad into the pit out there, and we didn't have anybody in the remote pit, but there was the Honda box band was there. And we were racing a Bombardier, Ford Bombardier. And I'm looking up and down pit road, and Bruce is waving me over. He waved me over, brought me into the Honda pit, and got a new hose clamp, fixed the oil line for me, and I took off and put oil on my quad. And that's just the kind of guy he was, just always willing to help, someone in a desert race or something like that. And then, fast forward, 3 or 4 years later,
you're riding for him. Yeah, that something happened to our sound. Somebody probably tried to call or a text message.
I don't know. Let me try to, can you hear it now?
Oh, you're back.
I'm back. Okay.
Yeah, you're back. It's okay.
Yeah.
Text message and an alert, anything will cause the sound to go off on a phone.
Yeah. So he was definitely a good guy and very influential in the sport, and helped a lot of people out. That's for damn sure. I know like the Honda program at one point was pretty big. They had, myself, Caffro, Tim Farr, Harold Goodman, Shane Hitt, bunch of guys, Joe Bird. I think Joe was with them almost the longest. Joe was there about the same amount of time as I was.
Yeah, he was there a long time because he was telling me on one of the shows that he got, when it was all done, he got one more year out of it.
Okay. Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to get a couple more years just under Johnny Campbell's umbrella with JCR. So that worked out. And I was still dealing directly with Honda, but everything went through JCR. They funneled everything through that. So, I still remember exactly where I was on the freeway when Chuck Miller called me to tell me they were shutting the whole program down. I was on my way home from the first race of the year.
Oh.
Yeah. Honda never did contracts until about April. That's just what their fiscal year was. So I was on the way home from the first race, which ironically I had gotten a UTV because Chuck Miller told me to get started racing UTVs because they wanted me to debut a UTV at a Baja 1000. So they helped me get, it was a K&M, and I was racing works races. And it was the first one I was coming home from. And then Chuck called, and I thought he called to want to see how the race was going and everything. he did ask that question, but then he told me that they shut the whole program down, the whole off-road program. Like Johnny Campbell's program was done, my program was done, desert racing was done. And that's when Johnny Campbell went back east, started racing GNCC. It was like definitely devastating.
Man.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap, this is not good.
Oh, not good at all.
Oh, so that's when I stopped racing quads.
Yeah, you never raced an ATV after that?
I did. So that same time, within weeks, my dad passed away, from that accident down in Baja. So I had a lot of life-changing things going on at that time. And, I found myself in charge of the family business. I was already running it, but my dad was always there to pick up the slack and do things when I wasn't around. So all of a sudden, he passed away suddenly. And then I lost my ride from Honda. I was like, well, I had a good run. Maybe this is time just to hang it up. And that in 2012, back up to that Baja 1000 previous, that was my one and only DNF with Honda in 8 years of racing. And we had about an hour and got bad fuel at a Honda pit and detonated the piston to death, blew the motor up. Mm-hmm. So I was like, shoot, I wanted to go out on a high note, but it just wasn't happening. And then that whole year, I took that year off. And then Wes Miller called me, and Dofo, who was riding with me in the previous couple of years, called and wanted to know if I would race with him at the 1,000. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I want to do it, but I want to build the quad. I want to be in charge of the build and do it the way I want to do it, because I wanted to go win. And not that they weren't capable. I was comfortable with my equipment and knew what we can do. And I had a quad left over that was brand new. So I built the quad, and we went down and raced the Baja 1000 in 2013 and ended up winning. And that was the last time I raced a quad. I think I've ridden a quad one time since then. I think in
Total Redemption, right?
What's that?
Total Redemption.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, we're done. It just, things changed in life. I had 2 kids, trying to be in charge of, running a business, houses and, all kinds of different stuff. And then, I was like, I was pretty much done racing. And then all of a sudden the UTV, I realized I wasn't done racing. I was just done racing with handlebars, and then, got into racing the UTVs, and that whole thing took off.
That's pretty incredible stuff. And did the UTV thing happen because you just wanted to go racing, or was there something behind it?
Hang on one second there. Something, I wanted to go racing. So, I still wanted to race. I'm just a racer at heart. If there's someone pulls up next to me on the freeway, it's a race. So I wanted to get into it, and I tried with Polaris. I had all the right contacts, or I had some of the right contacts, and made some phone calls trying to get a seat and trying to get them to support me. And it's one of those things where, I had a really impressive ATV resume, but I've never raced cars. And it's like, I'm telling this, $1 billion corporation, like, hey, just give it to me and I'll win, instead of, the other way, the way it should be is you got to win and then we'll give it to you type of deal. So I tried and didn't really get any traction. And then guy Alonso Lopez had wanted me to race a car with him through Alba Action Sports again. So the guys at Alba had set that up to where I drove Alonso's car, and it happened to be that he was funded by a guy named Terry Huey, he's a Canadian businessman, and I had no idea who Terry was. He's a Chinese guy, and went down there. The race was a total disaster. We didn't make it 150 miles at the 1,000. I was just showed up to drive. I just had a gear bag in my hand. And the next morning, I said we were supposed to go to La Paz, and we didn't make it 150 miles from Ensenada. So we turned around, went back to the hotel, and that morning at breakfast, Alonso was telling Terry about my ATV resume. So Terry asked for my number and said he wanted to call me about starting a race team. Okay, I didn't think it would go anywhere. So we're on our way home from that race, and my buddy Sam is in the back seat, and he all of a sudden goes, "Holy shit!" I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "You know who Terry is?" And I said, "No." And he's like, Forbes said he's worth billions of dollars. And he's on the Forbes 500 list. And like, oh shit, maybe something's real. So that night, Terry called me and said, "Hey, did you put any numbers together?" Because one of the things he's like, "Yeah, just put some numbers together." I'm like, "Well, honestly, no, I didn't think you'd call." He's like, "No, I'm very interested. Put numbers together." So next day, I called him and had numbers together, and immediately he's like, "Okay, we'll race 1,000 next year. Let's do it." I'm like, "No, that's all the races. That's all the score races. That's building cars, chase trucks, everything." And he's like, "Oh no, I only want to race 1,000." I said, "Well, we need to do the other ones for practice." So we're off to the races. The next day I contacted Jimco and hired them to build us a UTV, and they'd never done UTVs. They only done class 1 cars, 10 cars, and all that stuff. So found the top builder, and Terry funded it. And so we raced the Baja 500 was our first score race. And we went down there and beat the factory players team at the time was Jagged X. And we ended up beating them by like almost an hour. And of course they protested, everyone protested. But nothing stuck because we didn't cheat. We got all of our VCPs and stuff. And then, so right after that race, I had contacted Polaris and said, "Hey, what can we do? This, this and that." And they were a little receptive, but it was one of those things like, well, it's kind of a fluke. And then, so that kind of pissed me off. So we went and raced at Imperial Valley 250 race that Score had. We weren't gonna, but we decided to race it. And I think we beat their teams we beat everyone by 45 minutes at that one. And then, Polaris had called after that race and said that they wanted to do a deal. And I was in a real big hurry to get that deal done before the Baja 1000 because, in racing, you're only as good as your last race. So
Right.
we got the Baja 1000 and totally shit the bed. So it's like, well, let's get this done. I was pushing and could not get them to send me a contract. So we went to the Baja 1000 and ended up beating everyone by a little over an hour. And then Polaris called like 2 days after the race, and they're like, "Hey, we're sending that contract over." I said, "Well, let's hold on. Now it's worth a little bit more, I think." And so they started laughing. "Yeah, we thought you'd say that." So I ended up racing with Terry that next year, but with Factory Polaris's support. And then after that second year, Polaris decided to jump all in and supported us 100%. So Terry wanted to go race sailboats, and he only wanted to race 1,000. So I told him, "Hey, we'll do it. I'll set up another car and I'll help you organize everything." But he wanted to drive with me, and I wanted to drive by myself. So we ended up parting ways. I ended up buying a bunch of equipment from him, and never looked back. I still Terry still calls, I don't know, a couple times a year because him and Olivia, his wife, still follows all the races and stuff like that. So they'll send messages. But he got really into racing sailboats. So it's just one of those things that I was in the right place, right time, and had the right resume and found the right guy to believe in me. I think that's a lot of what racing is.
That's so awesome. And it's a Cinderella story that, all of us wish that we could have. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I'm always looking for the guy to believe in me so that I can go build the race machines to go racing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not the guy that's going to ever go ride it or drive it.
Yeah.
I-
It's like people's, first reaction is like, "Oh, you're super lucky," which I am. I'm very lucky, very fortunate. But I think luck is what happens when dedication and preparation meet. You have to have dedication. You have to be prepared in order to take advantage of the luck, because you can fall right in your hands. And if your hands aren't together and you're ready to catch it, it's not going to happen. So
Okay.
it's, definitely had a lot to do with luck and just fortunate circumstances.
and being ready when the circumstances aligned.
and ready to act on it. So, and there's so many racers in that same position, like, not that I'm comparing myself to Jimmy Johnson, but Jimmy grew up in El Cajon and Crest. His parents were wealthy by no means, and he happened to be in the right place, the right time, and things took off. I mean, look at Seth Quintero, racing Dakar and that stuff. His parents are not wealthy. He started racing a little 170, and someone caught the attention of someone from Red Bull, and for years his deal was just a helmet and a couple $1,000, and then now he's Red Bull's premier racer in T1 class, in the Toyota. So it's and he's doing awesome. He's a good kid. There's so many stories like that where people are in the right time, right place, and it just happens. So but you got to be ready to take advantage of it.
Yeah, you do. Wayne,
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much. And if I could extend the invitation right now, right here, so that everybody can hear it, you have so much more to tell. I would love to see if we could set up a round 2 to get into your racing career and the advice that you have, like being ready for the opportunity. The team here at ATV-TALK would love your feedback. Please email it. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to share us with your family and friends. The podcast is available on all streaming platforms, and you can find us on social media as ATV-TALK Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter.